and welcome to episode 6 of Behind the Curtain. Tonight, we take you to the Tech Tango, the Tech Table Tango, to the Tech Table Tango. And we're very, very excited about sharing what on earth goes on backstage during a technical rehearsal. And you're going to actually learn what the heck it is to begin with. I have a great panel of individuals surrounding me here tonight, and I would love to take a moment to introduce them. First, I would like to introduce to you our director of production. Her name is Carla Koskinen. Carla Frederick. Carla Koskinen is an amazing director for us. Carla Frederick. Carla, can you give us a wave? She oversees and handles all of the technical departments of the theater. She's my right-hand woman in all of this, and somebody that I depend upon to make sure that everything that has to do with the technical aspects of a production are on course. Next, I would like for you to meet Sam Monson, and she is the head of the stage management department for the theater. She oversees a number of stage managers, I believe 4 stage managers and 2 apprentices. She'll talk about a little bit later. But she and you're going to learn exactly what a stage manager does in this, because she is extraordinarily critical to the success of a technical rehearsal. Lucinda Koenig, who is the head of our wardrobe department, or she is the wardrobe supervisor, and which means that she basically is in charge of making sure that everybody during a production is getting dressed on time before the show, after the show, and during the show, most importantly. And you'll actually get to see her in action. Also with us is our musical director that is with the Phoenix Theater Company, Alan Ruck. And
hello.
Hello, Alan. He is responsible for teaching all of the music and conducting the orchestra and keeping the entire ensemble and featured players in connection with the orchestra during the course of any given show.
Hence the gray hair.
Hence the gray hair, yes. And we have 2 wonderful artists with us tonight that will be sharing in what happens during a technical process. First, Mr. Logan Mitchell.
Hi.
And dancer extraordinaire, also vocalist and actor extraordinaire. And we are so pleased to have him. He was the dance captain, or is the dance captain on Something Rotten, which you will see a couple of excerpts from tonight. And also, Mr. Lucas Coatney, a big, obviously very popular with our audiences.
Miss everyone.
I'm sorry?
I miss everyone.
And yes, and I know, we miss everybody out there. Lucas is a comic genius. He plays an extraordinarily funny role in Something Rotten, which will be a show that you will be seeing this coming season. Also a dancer, also a major vocalist. And you'll get to see a little bit of what he does during a technical rehearsal coming up soon. So, leading up to the technical rehearsals, and you're going to learn very quickly what those are, but leading up to a technical rehearsal, we begin with the auditions. Obviously, all of the actors audition, and you got to see a little bit about that when you watched the actor prepares. Then, of course, there's the rehearsal process, which is about a 3-week process, and then there's kind of like a half week that we call, or the end of the second, 2.5 weeks, and then we begin a different process for the last week of rehearsals, which is final run through a spacing rehearsal on stage, where we take the entire cast on stage and actually space out all of the musical numbers, big musical numbers and big scenes. We have numbers that go across the stage, so that the ensemble is told you're going to be on number 5 left, you're going to be on number 4 right, and et cetera, so that they all know where to be at every given moment within the body of a musical number, which is an extraordinary feat to memorize. But it also keeps everybody safe and clear, and there's plenty of room for high kicks, splits, jumps, leaps, anything that comes our way. We go into what we will learn about quickly here today, which will be a sits probe rehearsal, and then that finally leads us into tech. And Carla, now you're going to have to all excuse me, but our dogs, for the first time, there's obviously somebody that has ventured into the north wall of our fortress, and the dogs have attacked.
They've not been noisy before.
Never been noisy before. So tonight, God bless them, they are. So they won't be fed tonight. No. Carla, can you tell me what the tech process is?
Absolutely. Basically, it is the time for everyone who is on the technical side, your designers, your crew, the people who are executing all of the technical elements, to learn the show. So you have the rehearsal process and go in great detail of the blocking and the lines and the choreography and the music. And this is the time where the designers get to apply their lighting, their sound. We apply all of the scenic elements. We do our costume changes, all of the elements that enhance the performance. We spend 3 days and we painstakingly work moment to moment, and we add layer by layer of all the different elements that enhance the show. And typically a 10 of 12 is what we call it, and that is reflective of the hours in which we work. So we work 10 hours out of a 12-hour day. We take a 2-hour dinner break. And our hope is, if we've done our jobs well, that at the end of that 3-day course, we can run the entire show and we add in the orchestra for the first time. So it is a fast and furious process, but it's one of the that brings a show to life. It's a really lovely process.
It truly is. It truly is. We begin at 11 a.m. in the morning and we go till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Take a 2-hour break, come back at 6 and go to 11 o'clock at night. So it's an extraordinary 36-hour period that we truly bond during that time period. That's for sure. We get to know everybody and everybody gets to know us. So it's a very exciting, but it's magical in the sense that once that time period, that 36 hours has passed, you have actually put together something extraordinary and something magical that you're very proud to show to all of you out there. And we thank you so much for coming and seeing our shows. So there is somebody, obviously, that needs to be in charge of this 36 hours so we can get through the 36 hours in some kind of efficient way. So the director of the show, at that point, turns the technical aspects of the show over to combine them with the artistic aspects of the show into one single production. And that is the person known as the stage manager. And Sam Monson, can you explain to us what is the stage manager's role?
Absolutely. So during the rehearsal process, the stage management team has been in the room with everybody, keeping track of where the actors are on stage, when they exit to make a costume change, or when they need to re-enter, and what props and items they need to bring back on with them. And so during the designer run through, we put it all together and we have stunt doubles in everybody's hands. And so sometimes people are moving a costume rack to stand in for a scenic unit. And so when we get to the stage, it is the time to actually figure out just what all of the transitions are really going to look like. We've got a pretty good understanding of who is partaking in them, but now we need to figure out exactly how they all go together. And so the stage manager's job is to create all of the paperwork for keeping track of all of these scene shifts and costume changes. And we distribute that to the crew. And then we will step through the show scene by scene, moment by moment, and we will take it from the very top of the show, very first moment, and add the lighting cues. And then we will go through and talk through the costume changes. And then we will go through and talk through the scene changes. And then we go back and run the whole thing and see how it goes. And if it went well, we will keep moving forward. And if there were some bumps, we'll try it again until we get it right. And then we keep moving forward, making sure everybody is safe and that the artistic vision is achieved for each number and each moment in the show.
And one of the most important things to understand and realize during that 36 hours is that the stage manager has to help guide us in the amount of time that we are spending on any given moment of this technical process, so that we still can give due time to any moment of the show that come later. It's always an easy thing to do, to try to spend a lot of time right up front, but you don't begin to realize that you're cutting yourself short on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
The night before the technical rehearsals begin, there is an evening that is very exciting to a lot of individuals in the theater, and that is called the Sitzprobe. And I think our musical director, Mr. Alan Ruck, is probably the best person to explain what a Sitzprobe is. Alan?
Okay, well, as I like to say, Sitzprobe is a German word for sheer hell and terror. Of course, I'm joking. Sitzprobe is quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, many actors have come up to me and told me that in the entire process, the night of Sitzprobe is their favorite of all. It's the first time the orchestra comes together with the cast. And for 2 weeks, the cast has been listening to me play piano. And finally, we get to add 14 more musicians. The amount of energy that they bring, the show transforms, truly is transformed. And it's the night I kind of go, oh yeah, I think we got a show here. Anyway, what happens around 6 o'clock is that all the actors are fitted up into their wireless microphones. One by one, they go out on stage, and our sound designer asks them to sing and just keep singing while he or she goes through all the spectrum of frequencies and makes them sound truly human, but truly wonderful at the same time. Okay, around 7 o'clock, the musicians are ready to go. We do the same thing with all the musicians. One by one, we go through the room, and God knows the drums take forever because he usually has like 27 different things that he's playing at any given moment. Around 7:30, hopefully, we actually start playing and singing through the show. And the sheer hell joke that I made is all about the fact that when it all boils down, I've got about 3 hours to get through an entire show. Usually we make it. A couple times we haven't made it. A couple times we've gone into overtime. And let me tell you, on Les Mis, we did not make it.
True.
Anywho, yeah, so we will do a song. If the song's a solo, I'll take a minute to ask the singer, did everything feel okay? Did you get to hear everything that you need to hear in order to do your performance? If the song is a big ensemble or dance number, after we do it, I'll ask the choreographer or the dance captain, did that feel good? Did the tempo feel right? Is it danceable? Because I only have 3 hours, I tend to get a little excited, and sometimes the big production numbers end up going way too fast. And they look at me like I'm some sort of alien. Alan, humans can't dance like that. Anyway, okay, so we do that until we get to the end of the show. And at the end of the evening, we all have a brand new appreciation for what our product is. And I think we're all a lot more excited to present it to all the folks in the audience. Cool.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? For a director, the Sitzprobe is one of the really more pleasurable rehearsals for sure, because I'm not in charge as the director. I get to sit back and enjoy listening to the beautiful voices on stage mixed with the orchestra. And it's just such a pleasurable. Everybody is happy that night. It's just an exciting, easy, stress-less, except for maybe Alan, rehearsal that night as we're blending the voices of the ensemble with the orchestral instruments. So it's a lovely, lovely night, very special night.
Michael, when do we add the orchestra back in?
We don't add the orchestra back in until the first dress rehearsal, which is the final few hours of the third day of tech, which is typically our first dress rehearsal. So we don't see them. We see the orchestra on Thursday night, and we don't see them again until Sunday night after the entire show has been teched. However, there's also another very important individual besides the sound designer, who typically is Mr. Dave Timby, who, thank God, we know Dave Timby because he is he's the god of sound in our world, and he has trained many a sound engineer. We have a lovely sound engineer that you're about to meet, and she's going to explain to you just exactly what the sound engineer does during Sitzprobe and during tech. Rachel, can you help us out?
The sound process is really more of a sprint than a marathon. We pretty much start about a week out. We get all of the mics labeled, get all of the things put together and patched and tested, usually about within a week. And then on Thursday, which is our Sitzprobe, we come in. The sound designer has already laid out a script for me to follow, basically saying which faders move at what point. And then I just go and hope for the best. The sound designer will set the levels for the band, how they all sound in relation to each other, the specific EQs, and how the quality of the sound is shaped. And throughout the process, he gives direction and guides me in terms of what I need to do to keep the show consistent every single night. Okay, Lucas, whenever you're ready.
It's a musical, and nothing's as amazing as a musical. Ah! Oh my!
Wonderful, thank you very much.
So my process begins when I get a plot from the lighting designer about a month out. And I take the next week or so to break down that plot, find out the intentions and the needs of the designer, so then I can order materials to get their design into the air. After breaking down, schedule some work calls to hang the plot, circuit the plot, then focus the plot, so then the designer has their tools ready for them going into tech.
When I come in, the first thing I do is I assemble my crew, and we do a really good sweep and mop of the stage. In case there's any barefoot actors, we don't want anything going through a shoe or them to step on anything that can injure them, so we do a really thorough sweep and mop. And then we make sure that all the props, furniture, scenic pieces, everything is where it should be and how it should be before the show starts. We also fill hospitality, which is cough drops, hand sanitizer, water, so that actors backstage have everything they need to have a really great performance. Then the actors arrive and we get ready to do the show.
Good morning, everybody, and if we could please head to Places for the Top of Tech, Places for the Top of Tech. Thank you.
Once we get everybody assembled onto the stage, we will do a quick chat with everybody about how the day is going to go. We will step through the number with choreography and in our places, in our costumes, in our appropriate shoes, and we will set the lighting cues over the top of the number. Then we will go and talk through any scene change that has to happen at the end of that number and any costume changes that have to happen at the end of that number. Once everybody has talked through all of the things, we have set all of the lighting looks for for the whole number. Then we will go back to the top of the number and we will take it in time, calling lights, sound, and we'll do any scene changes that happen within it or after it, and run through the costume changes and see if we can get everybody on stage for the next number.
Well, I will pretend to be the director of Something Rotten. However, the real director for Something Rotten is the incredible Kathy Fitzgerald, who is 5 Broadway shows under her belt. An amazing, talented, hysterical comedian. And this is her first big musical. I chose her because she is so funny, and this show needed somebody that understood comedy from the back of their hand. She's the one. What I would do as the director is I would talk to the lighting designer to create the lights for a particular number that's coming up. In this case, I'll be talking to Kristen Peterson. However, the lights for Something Rotten were designed by Daniel Davison, who does a lot of our large musicals. He's an amazingly gifted lighting designer, very quick on his feet, and really knows my style. So I would approach and I would say to Kristen, in this particular case, I would say, okay, this next number that's coming up is very whimsical, very lighthearted, so I would like the lights to be able to demonstrate that. What can you show me?
Okay, let's try something like this.
So dark and barbaric, so dull and mundane, that was so Middle Ages. Oh, that was so Charlemagne. Welcome to the Renaissance, with poets, painters, and bon vivants, and merry minstrels who stroll the streets of London, are strung in their boots, in puffy pants and pointy leather boots.
Can we stop, please? So what I'm thinking is that's a great start, but in reality, what I'm looking for is something that is actually fantasy-based, that is more colorful, abstract. I want to get into the mind of the minstrel, and I think that the minstrel is seeing the Renaissance painted in these beautiful colors and fantastical whimsy. So, can you take us there?
Okay, let's try this.
So dark and barbaric, so dull and mundane, that was so Middle Ages. Oh, that was so Charlemagne. Welcome to the Renaissance, with poets, painters, and bon vivants, and merry minstrels who stroll the streets of London, are strung in their boots, in puffy pants and pointy leather boots.
Perfect. Thank you.
That was excellent. That was so much fun. And it's absolutely perfect. So, Sam, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We do this for every single solitary cue in the entire production.
Yep.
How many cues are we actually talking about in a minute?
Well, it can really vary on the show depending on how intricate and how spectacular a show is. Some shows are simple and not too in-depth, and some shows like Americana, we had almost 600 lighting cues, and that didn't count the deck cues and the sound cues and the video cues that all went with that. So we're talking, so many cues to get through a 2.5-hour musical.
So upwards of 600 cues, and each cue would have to be dealt with in the same manner that those cues that you just saw were dealt with. So
everything has to be layered together.
Yes, and there's a great deal of pressure when it comes to all of that we all have to sort of try to maintain a chill, if that makes sense. Now that it does take a long time, it really does, but it's amazing the ability that we have to find ways of catching up and getting through it all, so that we can actually do and produce a dress rehearsal. We know that deadline exists, and there has got to be a way to get to that deadline. And it takes everybody. It takes Carla, it takes Lucinda, it takes Sam, it takes the entire crew, takes Alan, takes all the cast,
Yeah.
able to get us to that dress rehearsal on Sunday. What is the average time do you think it takes to construct a particular cue? Bam.
It truly depends on what the goal and the desired effect is, how much time a designer has had to sit with the director to make sure that they are on the same page, and if the designer has had any time to be at the board to get ahead and pre-cue anything. So it can take anywhere from a minute and a half to some looks can take up to 20 minutes to get just right, programming effects and different color palettes and making sure that the director's vision is achieved. So it depends on the moment and the desired look and how long it takes to reach that point. But
in a musical with about 600 cues, you really only are really given the opportunity to think about a particular cue for maybe a minute to a minute and 30 seconds, or you're just going to flat out run out of time. Of course, the lighting designer will continue to work on the light cues through the dress rehearsals. The next day, Monday, is our big work day. Tuesday during the day, Tuesday night is the second dress rehearsal, Wednesday during the day, and even through the previews. The lighting designer will continue to tweak and move, but at least there is a set number of cues that have been established.
Absolutely. Like during the first audience, you can see Daniel will be changing lights as we have our very first audience. So the audience is watching the show for the first time. We're in our first previews and they're getting to take it all in. And Daniel is furiously adjusting things, talking to the light board op and telling them, no, change this, adjust that. So the first preview audience gets to see one show and the second preview audience gets to see another one. It's exciting.
Very true, very true. We're going to move on to costume changes as our next technical challenge during tech. Have you ever wondered, how we are able to change a person's costume so quickly? Well, we are about to show you. Logan?
Welcome to the Renaissance. What's a famous part to do? And now I have a 9-second quick change. So I have my other costume underdress under this. So I run as that curtain's going off, and I take off my hat, I unzip this, and I find my dresser, Lucinda.
So the secret to a 9-second change is all about the underdressing. I stand here waiting for Logan. As soon as he comes to me, I grab the hat from him, I peel his jacket off of him, I unfasten the back of his pants, pull them down so that he can step out and run on for his entrance.
And then I run out in my costume and then I pose so he can sing.
Now let's see this in real time.
Shakespeare, you're feeling the heat to still be new. Welcome to the Renaissance. What's a famous part to do? My days are so busy, it's making me dizzy. There's so much I gotta do.
There he is.
It's lunches and meetings and poetry readings and endless interviews.
So that took 9 seconds to execute. He went from a complete minstrel costume to a complete Shakespeare bard costume, as we call them. Lucinda, can you tell me how many times did it take for us to get that down to 9 seconds?
That particular change we actually accomplished on our very first try.
Yeah,
and a lot of that,
like unheard of.
It's completely unheard of. It's usually 2 or 3, even more for a lot of changes. And there's a lot of times where I have to call the costume designer, which in this case would be Macy Hostler, backstage and be like, so how hard would it be if he wore a different thing? There's a lot of those compromises that have to happen for some of those changes. Like, does he really have to change his pants?
Yeah, that's what we thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
But knowing ahead of time that this was going to be 9 seconds, or at least, it's going to be a very short amount of time. We were able to, the costume shop was able to build the costume with enough rigging in it that we were set to go when that change came up.
Yeah.
I think so.
Logan, I have to hand it to both Logan and Lucinda in this particular case, because it takes a particular artist that is comfortable and not frenetic or panicked backstage, and it takes a wardrobe dresser who is also established, quick, clean, and efficient, and they both know exactly what the other person is doing. Logan, you can tell us a little bit about that, can't you?
Yeah. Well, so many of the shows that I've been in the ensemble, and so many of them, I think maybe 2 of them I haven't had a million quick changes. Like West Side Story, I had like 2 costumes. Pippin, I had 1 costume. It was like the only time that I ever had like 1 pair of pants, and I was like, what? Jersey Boys, I think I made 12 costume changes just in Act 1, and I had like 3 or 4 different wigs. And Something Rotten is very similar. And so I'm used to it. And this particular change, I didn't really think it was actually humanly possible. And I have done really fast changes before. In Spamalot, remember I wore like a frog unitard that had to come that was like underneath my we've done some really fast, really weird changes before, but I was like, I don't know if we're going to do it, but we had a chance to walk through it. Like Sam was saying, we get to walk through every change before we do it in real time. So when we walked through it, they had built in these snaps on the inside of my pants, like stripper pants. And it's amazing because I can do the whole first act or the whole first number, and I can dance and I can kick and I can move, and they don't fall off, and it stays perfectly intact. But then at the touch of my hand, I can just rip it off. And it's a miracle. We got it on the first try. It's just amazing.
Well, congratulations to both Logan and Lucinda. Excellent work. Excellent work. And now, ladies and gentlemen, when you come to see Something Rotten, you'll know exactly what is going on backstage during that 9 seconds. Now, we're going to talk about something else. And I'm going to turn to Sam on this one as well. We have some enormously large scenic pieces on stage, set pieces, houses, large oversized tables, and et cetera, et cetera. These enormous pieces that have to go off stage and also have to fit backstage in our very limited space backstage, along with all of our crew shifts and actors and crew, et cetera. But sometimes we have like less than 9 seconds to get a set off stage and be able to move into the next scene that has to be covered by a musical underscore from the orchestra, most likely. Can you tell us some of the tricks that we have, Sam, in being able to execute some of these scenic changes?
Absolutely. One of the things that we've been really lucky to be able to invest in over the years are aircasters. And they are a bit of hydraulic technology that makes our lives so much easier. All it takes is a flip of a switch to raise the wheels, to lower the wheels, so the scenic unit comes up, and we can move a scenic unit like butter so easily. They flow so well. But the joy of it being an aircaster is by dropping the switch, the wheels suck up inside the legs. And so then you're dancing on a stable surface. And so that's really important for the banquet table in Something Rotten, because we've got 3 people tap dancing on that thing at any given time. And aircasters are such a wonderful solution to stage pin breaks or old handle flip breaks, because you know that they're locked down and secure and they're not going anywhere, and you're not fighting to find a hole in the dark. You just need to flip a switch and everything drops into place and you're safe and secure. And they've been a wonderful investment that we've been able to make that makes our scene changes a lot more magical.
Sam, I know that you are sort of in charge of organizing all of the tech the costume changes, the set changes, the lighting changes, the sound cues, et cetera, et cetera. Actors' entrances and exit. But you must have some kind of help.
Oh, absolutely. Would not be able to do it alone. I am very lucky to have a wonderful stage management team at the Phoenix Theater Company. We all, the original 3 members of us started at the same time, and we've been able to add Milea Bowers. And so there are 4 resident stage managers at Phoenix Theater Company, as well as 2 apprentices. And between the 2 performing spaces, sometimes even the 3 spaces, we all work together to keep track of everything that's happening on the stage and keep the shows flowing. And we all pitch in and help each other out, and we would not be able to do it alone. These shows are big, and so Catherine is the resident assistant stage manager for the main stage more often than not, and she is in charge of keeping that deck moving and making sure that scenery is moving safely and where it needs to be, and that it's ready to go for the next entrance. And so backstage is its whole dance and choreography that you are not seeing, getting everything ready for the next moment to seamlessly arrive on stage. And that takes a lot of choreography and patience and 360 vision, making sure that you can see everything happening around you, make sure that the show moves forward.
Sometimes I think that buying a ticket and watching everything from the perspective of backstage would be a really fun thing to do.
It's its own special treat for sure.
No, that's for sure. Take us to the tech table, will you?
Absolutely. So we're going to see a little bit of what happens during the tech process here via the lovely video here. Kristen's going to show us.
Cue lights are a very important part of our process here running a show. Not everybody is on headset, and quite often I am working to cue an actor to come on stage, to make an entrance, to start singing, to bring on a piece of furniture or a set piece. And so a way that we communicate with each other is through cue lights. And so all of these switches correspond to a small little LED just like these backstage. And when I turn the switch on, that means you're on standby. And when I flip the switch off, that is your GO. That means it is time to go.
It's a musical, and nothing's as amazing as a musical, with song and dance, and sweet romance, and happy endings happening by happenstance. Bright lights, stage fights, and a dazzling chorus. The future is bright if you could just write a musical from me. They'll be flocking to see a starlet won't quit, big hit musical.
Then we come to a transition.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Quick Change Alley. This is the part of the stage where after a large musical number, the ensemble will run off stage to change their clothes. We have each station set up with costumes layered so that the next one they put on is on the top.
Okay.
There are 21 people in the show, and we only have 6 dressers total. We do a triage situation, so the people who have the least amount of time change closer to the edges so they can run on stage faster. And the people who have more time push toward the middle. Our dressers focus on the people who have the least amount of time first, and then we move down the line and help the people who have more time as we go. That's how Quick Change Alley works.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the real.
They'll be flocking to see a starlet won't quit, big hit musical.
Now we're in transition. So everyone is backstage now changing costumes.
Boys! Big
idea for a show. Big
Here
idea.
comes the ensemble.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going. I'm sorry.
And so that's how quick the entire ensemble just changed their costumes. That's what's amazing. Thank you, Lucinda, for being in charge of the of the quick change alley. Thank God. That keeps us going. Carla, there seems to be so much to get our shows ready, to run them night after night after night. How many individuals are actually on our production staff?
Well, our full-time production staff is 21 members. And we have a variety of overhire that we bring on in terms of crew, which are also overhire and generally selected specifically for a show. Depending on the size of the show, we could have anywhere from 12 to 15 individuals that come in and just run the show. And on top of that, we have additional people that come in after hours to assist with laundering all of the costumes. This is a tremendous amount of laundering that's done and ironing and pressing after each show. So we have a massive team behind the scenes that work tirelessly to get these shows up on their feet for the audiences.
It's like a village.
Takes a full village for sure.
There's the entire, it's actually a city block. A city backstage of individuals that are helping everybody on stage. It seems like the larger the cast, the larger the backstage crew is to be able to execute everything that needs to take place to make it as precise and as entertaining for every individual out there. And we do it because we love you. We absolutely love every single patron that comes to our theater. And we cannot thank you enough for supporting us. Not only now, but throughout all of the many, many years. So we've met a number of our individual staff members that work during the production, but there are a number of individuals that work backstage in the production department that really don't interface a whole lot with the actual physical execution of the production. Those are the individuals that are in charge of the departments and are in the departments that are actually building the resources that we work with during the technical rehearsals. The set, all of the properties, all of the costumes, all of the rigging of all of the lighting and the lighting instruments, all of the microphones, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to take you backstage and talk to three individuals that are the heads of three very critical departments when it comes to tech: scenic, properties, and costuming. They're all run by women, and thank God they are, because they keep us on track and they keep us clear-headed and focused, even when we're cranky and, I don't know, male. The first one I want you to meet is Elizabeth Jovanovic. She is our technical director, and I'm going to ask her a little bit about the process and what happens in building and developing this scenic. Liz?
Liz, what is the process for your team to take a set from the scenic designer's drawings? In this particular case, for Something Rotten, it is a very gifted designer, Aaron Jackson, that has worked for us on a number of occasions. And how do you take his drawings to a finished product? How do you begin?
Well, we'll get a big packet of drawings. We usually start talking about a show about 4 months out. About 2.5 months out, we'll usually get finished drawings from a designer. Then I will go through, I'll order all the materials we need and turn his design drawings into construction drawings so that the members of my shop can start building them. We'll get separate paint elevations, which is a detailed picture of how it wants to come out, and those will go to our painter, Delia. The shop will weld together an internal frame for most of our pieces, add casters and any internal structure like lighting troughs for electrics to work with later. We will skin the outside in wood and sometimes fabric. Delia will paint it, then we'll add all of the molding and other details and trim on top of that.
So Liz, are you, as technical director, the one that is in charge of creating all the construction drawings for a show?
Yeah. Some of the drawings we get from the designer have enough information that the team can start on them right away, and some of them need broken down and more information added to them or changed slightly based on how we're going to build it and make that design come to life. So I do a lot of construction drawings.
And how many individuals are in your shop?
The scenic team is 6 people, so there's myself, an assistant technical director, 2 builders, a painter, and a seasonal apprentice.
Excellent. And are they each skilled in a particular different aspect of scenic build, or are they pretty much, they can do it all?
My team has a very wide skill set. They each have things that they are stronger on, but basically any project I feel comfortable giving to any member of my team. All of the guys in here can do the welding and the carpentry and all of the aspects. All of them can go out on stage and do the rigging to get scenery up into the air. So it's a very big team effort.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it sounds like there is a tremendous amount of work to do on any given show. How long does that take you for a show like Something Rotten? I mean, what is your build process length of time?
From the very beginning of building to getting it out on stage and having actors on it, we have an average of 5 weeks. For Something Rotten, I think it was right there on the nose. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 3 or 4. So it's a very tight turnaround.
Thank you, Liz, so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes. And now we're going to go to the head of properties, and her name is Rebecca Bandy. Let's meet Rebecca. What are props, and what is the process of designing them?
So I usually like to use the definition of prop as something that you would take with you if you moved houses. So it's your furniture, your rugs, your pictures on the wall, your dishes. If you had any food left in the fridge, that's part of our problem too. And we start always with research. Making sure that we're in the right time period, that whatever we're doing is time period appropriate, that we're not putting a book bag, like that was from the 70s into a show from the 50s, things like that. We consult a lot with the designer on the idea of their world for this, but we do make several decisions, minute by minute of, what direction we want to go to finish a product.
And how often do you have to make something versus purchase something?
It seems, so we have a pretty decent stock. We keep our small stuff upstairs, and then we have a warehouse with furniture and that kind of thing. So we do have the ability to pull several things. We'll either, pull it and alter it, or we'll buy it and alter it. So it kind of probably ends up being about 50-50 about what we buy versus what we have to make.
And then when you buy something and you make it into what you need for that particular show, do you typically save that prop and put it back in stock?
It depends on what it is. For Something Rotten, we're making a bucket that is supposed to have bear poop in it. And so that may not be something we save, because how many times is that going to come up? Like a bucket full of poop. Depending on the show, may not come up. But some of the things, can be reused. Like a little tray for selling concessions, we've used those several times. So we may make it for a show, but alter it for the next one or something like that.
Sure. So can you give me an example of a prop that you had to create with a particular set of challenges to it?
Yes. Right here we have a weapon. These guns for Americano. This is a gun that the Marines do use. They still use this. It is a little bit different. This is a replica, so there's no way to load bullets. There's no part to break apart for cleaning or anything. It is just a dummy weapon, more for the weight of things, for them to get used to that going into their pack, for them to be able to maneuver them correctly when they're needing to aim and that kind of thing. This is technically the old clip. It is the shorter one that they would have used in Vietnam era. But I did get it approved from a Marine that is current to the practices of things now, that they do still use this in some parades and that kind of thing for some of their exhibition of the guns. So it is still accepted to be used as a current Marine weapon. So we started with our research and made sure that this is the right model. And then we went to a mold situation. And here, this is a 2-part mold. So it's got 2 parts. The orange part is like a silicone-based mold. So it is built up. So this is about, I think it was 6 layers of this got painted on to the gun. And then that had to dry, each coat needed to dry. So this is kind of a pretty time-consuming process. But you can let this dry, move on to another project. So that's what we do a lot of that in props, is letting something dry and moving to something else, because we've always got something else to do. So we start with that process, and then each of these pieces it's kind of like an air dry type clay. It's probably the closest thing that I can describe. It is a smooth-on product which we use a lot for mold and that kind of thing. So it got put together on top of that. Each piece of that kind of has to dry and then move on, and it has just barely some small cuts just so that we can get it apart and back on. The final process is actually getting the foam, the expanding foam, to go into here. So there is an opening at the front of this that you can put the foam in. And you have to zip tie everything together so that when the expanding foam expands, it doesn't push away this second part. And you also put a piece of plywood at the end and clamp it all together so that it forces it to go back in there and expands into the gun shape.
Wow, that is quite the process. How long would you say it takes to make one of those?
So the process of making the mold is probably the most taxing. I believe it took 4 days to get all of the pieces done for that. And then you can do basically a gun a day. It's kind of like what it works out to be. Getting it in there, getting it set up, letting it expand fully, taking it apart, cleaning the mold, and moving on to the next gun.
That's amazing. And that's just for one prop. A specialty prop, but it is one prop. And the detail that goes into that, and just the layers of time that go into the creation of a prop that may be used for 15, 25 seconds. 15 to 25 seconds on stage is remarkable. But that is the integrity of our technical department. Everything wants to be done at the best level and the highest level that it possibly can. I would like to finally meet the manager of our costume department, and her name is Sarah Lindsay. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Michael.
So we all know how important costumes are in creating the magic of the theater, But you're the costume manager. So what exactly does that mean in order for the magic of the costumes to come alive on stage?
So for me, being a costume shop manager is about bringing the characters to life in terms of telling the story. The designer hands me renderings, and we look at what we have available in our stock, what we can purchase, and then the majority of my job is overseeing the build.
What does the build mean? What do you do first?
Yeah, so for the build, we first look at the lines in the rendering, the silhouette overall, how the pieces go together. Typically then we look and see if we have a commercial pattern or an existing pattern that can be modified to fit the design. If not, we will drape on a form or we will flat pattern using, it's basically geometry, adding and subtracting circles and triangles to get the shape you want. Then we cut it out of fabric. Typically we do a mock-up first, where we cut it out of like a muslin or something less expensive fabric that mimics the hand of what it'll actually be. We schedule fittings. The first round we fit the mock-ups, do any adjustments to fit or style that the designer would like. We ask the actors how they function in the thing. Specifically, like, we make sure they have enough range of movement in their shoulders, in their crotch area. We make sure it all fits and has room for movement, which in
in our business we call ease. And then we take that, we do any modifications to the pattern, cut it out of real fabric, and kind of start the process in fashion fabric.
So tell me, is there anything special that you have to do for, like, a dancer when you're that we might not even realize as an audience member?
Sure. So if it's a purchased garment, typically we make sure it has stretch in it. So like all of our jeans, even in period shows like a West Side Story where they didn't have stretch denim, all of ours are stretched so that they have range of movement. If that's not enough, we'll add a gusset, which is like a football shape, into the seam so that it'll stretch. We also do that in the underarm sometimes if they need to do like more shoulder movement or lifts. We'll do a whole spandex panel between the shoulders, like the sleeve seam that'll go underneath. So we'll have two finished seams and there's a whole spandex panel so they can move. So there's a lot of tricks for adding range of movement.
How many costumes did you build or shop for something run?
Ranging from a simple thing like a cod piece all the way to a head-to-toe look, we built about 110 things for something run.
Wow.
Not only here, we had other talent in the Valley helping us build, but yeah, it was probably about 110 pieces.
And how many stitchers typically work on a large show with you?
So typically we have 3 full-time stitchers, including our apprentice in the shop. With a larger show, we pull in a lot of local talent and our resources in the Valley. For a show like Kinky Boots or Something Run, we can have up to 14 other people working on the show with varying amount of hours, but there's a lot of labor that goes into labor of love that goes into this process.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for shining a light on this particular aspect of the Tech Table Tango.
No problem, Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed getting a glimpse of exactly what happens behind the curtain during technical rehearsals from the production end of things. It takes an army, literally an army of individuals to put this show together. We begin on a show probably about 18 months out. Now that literally means from the decision on what shows we are going to actually produce for the following season. And then later on, we contract the designers. And then the designers have to think about things. And then we have early concept meetings and et cetera, that finally lead into the last 3.5 weeks of actual physical rehearsal that we have. But during the times leading up to that, of course, is all of the work that is being done in the shops, as you just witnessed. This is something that we all do together as a team of individuals with one goal in mind, and that is to entertain and bring to life a story or a message that will convey something that will console, comfort, unite, teach, or perhaps just offer you some escapism. But it is the art of theater, and whatever is in our DNA, we are all on this panel, and so hundreds and hundreds of others are devoted to bringing the joy and happiness of live theater to all of you. With that being said, I would be remiss as the producing artistic director to not say these are troubling times for us. They're troubling for everybody, as we know. The arts are impacted, as are restaurants, as are hundreds of other individual businesses. If you've seen something tonight and you recognize, oh my goodness, there's so much that goes into producing the arts, and that moves you in some way to make a donation to the Phoenix Theater Company, we would greatly appreciate that. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts. there's a button at the lower right end of your screen that you can punch, and it will take you to a screen that allows you to donate to the Phoenix Theater Company in whatever meaningful way that you can. We're now, we're going to wrap this particular tech table tango tightly together, but we're going to end it with a song that is always in the back of our minds and deep in our hearts. And then following this song, we were going to do a short Q&A. So if you would like to stay on, we have some questions that have already started to come in that I will ask individuals on our panel to answer. But to end this, we have a song that is very reminiscent and very close to our hearts. Mr. Lucas Coatney, our comic genius extraordinaire, is going to sing a little bit of this. Lucas?
There's no business like show business, like no business. I know everything about it is appealing. Everything the traffic will allow. Nowhere can you get that happy feeling when you are stealing that extra love. There's no people like show people smile oh. Yesterday they told you you would not go far. That night you opened and there you are. They've hung a star. Let's go on with our show.
Thank you, Lucas. That song resides in each and every one of our hearts. And I thank you for that beautiful rendition. We have a few questions that have come in that I'd love to find the answers out to. This first one's going to go to Alan. And Alan, where is the band physically located during our music?
Okay. Well, as you first enter the theater, you come into the older part of the lobby. The band is in a room 1 story above the older part of the lobby. So basically, if you know where Sam is in the stage manager's booth, we're right behind her in this funny room that we use as a rehearsal hall now. But back in the days, in the olden days, it used to be the costume loft. Anyway, also, if it's a smaller band, we could be like right off stage or behind the set. But lately, in the past few years, all the big shows, we've been upstairs. And I communicate with video screens. I can see the stage, and the actors can see this big mug all over the place. So that we can stay together.
That's true. There's probably about 6 to 8 monitors
eight.
Over the stage and at the back of the house where the cast member can actually physically see Alan's face to get the orchestral cues to come in. Our second question goes to you, Sam. Do you stage manage the shows in both spaces?
No, we split the season up. So our team, I take most of the shows on the main stage, and Michelle Elias takes most of the shows in the Hormel. And sometimes when we've got a third show, we have to hire outside stage managers as well. It takes quite a team to make shows happen at the Phoenix Theater Company because we run simultaneously. So you have to have many stage managers and many crew members and actors and band and everybody in order to make 2 to 3 shows running at the same time happen.
I see. This one's going to go to this next question. Thank you, Sam, for that. This next question is going to go to Lucinda. Who designed the costumes for Something Rotten?
Our costume designer for Something Rotten is Macy Hustler.
Okay. And has she done anything else for us?
She is working on Rocky Horror.
Okay, great. And she did our gala, did she not?
She did our gala, and she did airness for us as well.
Oh, that's true. Thank you, Carla. So I'm going to throw this out to everybody. Anybody, just raise your hand if you've got an answer to this. Can anyone give us a funny story about a technical hiccup? Something that went absolutely wrong in tech. Lucas?
Well, there's several, but this is the
That's true.
So during Americano, there's a very serious part. It's called Numeros. It's a song about 9/11. And at the end of Numeros, there's a bell that's supposed to ring, and it's like the end of lunch, kind of like, and we're all at the edge of the stage looking up, and we're waiting for the bell. Well, something happened with the sound cue, and it skipped to the next sound cue, and the next sound cue was an announcer being like, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the dance." So we ended Numeros, this like dramatic song, and we're waiting for the bell, and all of a sudden, in front of 400 people, it goes, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen," and we were just like, "Oh gosh!" We had to like keep our composure. It was funny.
Yay, previews!
Okay, speaking of bells, you know what story I'm going to tell, Michael, about the bell, the West Side Story bell that you now have hanging. That's what I thought you were going to. That's the story I thought you were going to tell, Lucas. So it's like one of my all-time favorite tech memories, because when we would go into Doc's drugstore, there was this door, and it was supposed to have like a bell that would ring every time you went in. And then in Act 2, there's this really dramatic scene when Anita walks in, and it's supposed to be ring-a-ling-a-ling, and it's very dramatic, and that's sort of our cue to look at her. And the bell was like a screw, and it wasn't making a lot of noise. And so Michael was like, "We need the bell to make way more noise. Come on, like you need to get a better bell." And so but it was back ordered or something. It didn't get there until our first preview. So we had done all of our dress rehearsals with this other bell, and then this new one comes in, and it's really big and it's really floppy, and we're like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. And sure enough, every time, and we, like I said, we have not tried it until the show starts, and it's our first preview, and every time the door opens, it rings for probably at least 30 seconds, and it's just ring, 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 and we're all trying to be like, and like it was after Cool, and the sharks come in, and we're supposed to be really angry, and we're like, "Hey, shark," and it's like ring, ring, ring for about 30 seconds, and we just have to keep going. And I said when I got off that stage, I was like, "It's not going to be an Act 2. I was like, "I can assure you, Michael will not let this bell be in Act 2. And everyone was like, "What? You really think like he's going to come and like take it off?" I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "It's not going to be in Act 2 because we have that really dramatic scene with Anita." I was like, "There's no way that he is going to allow that bell to." And sure enough, intermission, Michael comes walking backstage, and then he comes back with his bell, and it's gone. So the audience saw it for Act 1 of one show, and then we gave it to Michael. We all signed. We attached it to a wooden board and signed it and gave it to him as an opening.
It's in my office to this day. So Carla, last question. Do we use college students in any way in our productions?
That's a great question. Actually, we do on both the performance side and the tech side. College students are almost exclusively make up our crew for the most part. In fact, I teach in a number of community colleges across the valley, and so that is my greatest recruiting ground for some great young talent. And we love to bring them in when they're young and eager and fresh, because we can train them some really good habits that they can use going forward. And it's our greatest community for young artists that are up and coming. And our hope is if we spark an interest and they've run a couple of shows for us, that they then join our apprentice program. And then they get to train with us for an entire season. And after they've done that, then they're really solid young practitioners to go out into the world and to create a career that we have curated very specifically on how to work in a professional environment. It's one of my favorite aspects of the job for sure.
And in addition to that, we also have a collaboration with Arizona State University's Department of Musical Theater. And those individuals that are seeking a degree in musical theater can audition for us, and we can give them equity points or actors equity points towards becoming a professional union member, as well as a stipend salary during the course of the time. So we often use college students from Arizona State University, also Grand Canyon University, and other community colleges around the area. So both artists and crews, we definitely engage, encourage, and hire college-age students. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for joining us on Behind the Curtain. We look so forward to seeing you next week on Behind the Curtain for episode 7. We're going to take a look at choreographers next week, and on what on earth does a choreographer do? Logan and Lucas, do you have any idea what a choreographer does? Will you think about it for a week?
They yell.
And we'll be back with you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Episode 6, The Tech Table Tango. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.